Last night, in our last segment before the game, we gave our picks. And my pick was very simply the Packers. And I'm not always going to do attaboys, but sometimes I will. Right? My arms are long. I don't know if they're long enough to consistently give myself a pat on the back. But the idea was that the Bears were 3-point favorites. That's the home field advantage. Although it may not be worth 3 points anymore, Soldier Field generally worth that many points. So that means on a neutral site, it's a pick'em game. And if all things are equal, and one guy's a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, still in his prime athletically, and the other guy's name is Mitch Trubisky, who do you think I'm taking? So there's a lot of different stuff we can take from last night's game. And by the way, I'll give you my thoughts on Antonio Brown and the apology upcoming in about 10 minutes. Keep in mind, the Bears, they pulled out all the stops. They brought back the 85 Bears, which was weird, right? Weird. It's not really an anniversary of the 80. It's like 2019, my guess, if it gets to 2020, but that's not really how the 85 Bears worked. It's really the Super Bowl is in 86. That's odd. But they brought out Jim McMahon. They waved the towels. They had the dynamic defense. Let's start with a couple different things. I told you last year, having seen Mitch Trubisky in person, having talked to the Miami Dolphins, having talked to other teams getting ready to cover what was the Dolphins-Bears game. The Bears love Mitch Trubisky, the guy, love Mitch Trubisky, the athlete. Everyone else in the league says, not crazy accurate. And whatever the pre-snap read is, that's what he's going with. He doesn't process on the fly like the elite quarterbacks. And the two hardest things to learn to do, and are frankly almost impossible, is become more accurate as a thrower and to process what you see quicker. And the Bears, of course, thought to themselves, hey, look, the reason he doesn't process quickly, the reason he's not that accurate is because he barely played in college. Remember, he only started 1 year in college. It is possible that the Packers defense is that good and the Bears offense was that bad. These two things can both be true. It can also be true that both of these teams needed more preseason work. I understand the risk. I completely understand the risk of throwing your guys out there in preseason games or even in these scrimmages that Aaron Rodgers fought Matt LaFleur on. But the fact was, Aaron Rodgers didn't even look like Aaron Rodgers last night, with the exception of when Aaron Rodgers and the play was breaking down and he ran around and threw the ball up for grabs because, well, that's what Aaron Rodgers does, right? Like the new offense and the old offense had a lot of similarities. Nonetheless, the Packers are 1-0. The Bears are 0-1. And there's a lot of things that determine whether or not you make the playoffs, but how you start is a huge determinant in this league. And for the second consecutive year, the Packers have beaten the Bears. Frankly, for like the 15th consecutive years, the Packers have been. It's one of these weird rivalries in which very, 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 very rarely are both teams actually good. They've played each other for a long time. They're close in proximity. There is a lot of history. They've both had incredible franchises between George Halas and Vince Lombardi and the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears and Jim McMahon and Brett Favre. But outside of that, they're rivals in proximity and number of times that they've played, not in terms of championship pedigree on a consistent basis. Fair? I think we can expect to see sloppy games. I think we can expect defense at times to dominate, especially teams that the Packers didn't just sit Aaron Rodgers for preseason games. They were installing a new offense and didn't play him in preseason games, and he didn't play all the snaps in those scrimmages. It's one of the reasons, by the way, I like the Colts a little bit more than I normally would because Andrew Luck didn't play. It's not like Andrew Luck was stepping in and playing in an offense he had not competed in. Jacoby Brissett was the guy taking a ton of the snaps in preseason games and in these scrimmages all preseason long. He's actually going to be sharper than most of these quarterbacks. So I got my picks upcoming for you. But the Bears' ceiling is lower because of Trubisky. Here's Matt Nagy on what went wrong against the Packers.
Just a little combination of everything. You know, I think, again, I give credit to Coach Pettin on defense. I said it to you guys last year. He's a good defensive coordinator, and he does a lot of good things, and they do some things personnel-wise that they're able to do. He's always done that. But at the same time, you know, I think that whether it was in the run game, I know we had a bunch. We ended up throwing a lot more than passing, and for whatever reason we did. That's not what we want.
Yeah, 15 rush, 45 pass. A quarterback that runs it better than throws it. A team that's designed around the run, and let's make sure that Mike Pettin gets his due. I was listening on our sister station in Los Angeles, AM 570, that carried the game on Thursday Night Football. Kurt Warner was on the call, and he continued to point out, accurately so, that the Packers were loading up the box. They were daring Mitch Trubisky to beat him, and Mitch Trubisky did not have the ability to beat them. So I think the takeaway is, you know, when push comes to shove, you take the better quarterback. That first 3-4 games in the preseason, they are going to be hit and miss because there's just a lot of room for growth when you haven't played football in a long time. Haven't played football in a long time. And I thought that LaFleur looked like a rookie head coach. Right? Like, what is he doing challenging pass interference, costing himself a timeout at that point in a close game in a play that didn't appear to be obvious offensive pass interference? And so it wasn't overturned. Everybody's got to do this a little bit before they can figure it out. Right? It happens when you do a new radio show, a new TV show. It happens when, you know, your first couple weeks of class, you're still kind of feeling your way around, getting to know each other. And it sure as hell happens in the National Football League against the best of the best on the brightest and biggest of stages. Like we put unrealistic expectations on players. And oh yeah, by the way, I kind of think it hurts the product. We continue to diminish the value of practice. Remember, they practice and hit less than they ever have. They play in fewer preseason snaps than they ever have. And they look less sharp than they ever have. All of these things do, in fact, correlate. And thankfully for both the Packers, the Bears, and the National Football League, the game was close. And there was a big interception at the end of a game. And even though Matt LaFleur called a pass play when they just needed a first down and to run out the clock on 2nd and 5, just run the football, dummy. The Packers end up surviving the Bears. They were the vastly superior team. It just didn't reflect it on the scoreboard. Hi, I'm Doug Gottlieb from Fox Sports Radio, and you need to subscribe to the Fox Sports Radio YouTube channel where you can hear and see me. Why not? Plus everybody else who's awesome here on Fox Sports Radio.